Hello everyone, welcome to the Concept X. So today in this lecture we are going to discuss about the fibrous joints. Fibrous joints. So what is the fibrous joints actually? In the last class we have discussed the classification of joints. If you haven't watched that video, I'll put that link of that video in the description. You can go and easily check that video. But in this video, we're mainly focusing on one of that particular joint, which is called the fibrous joints. So what is in fibrous joints? In fibrous joints, there is no synovial cavity. There is no synovial cavity. Both the bones, for example, this is one bone and this is another bone. So both the bones, they are held together by or packed by or connected by some kind of dense irregular connective tissue. So it is a dense irregular connective tissue. Dense irregular connective tissue. So it is a dense, it is irregular, and it is a connective tissue. Connective tissue, why it is called connective tissue? Because it connects two articulating bones. So this is number one articulating bone, this is number two articulating bones. When our dense irregular connective tissue connects two bones, that's why it's called connective tissue. It is a very irregular in structure and it is very much dense. That's why it is called dense irregular connective tissue. Some kind of tissue which is in dense form, they are highly dense, highly compact and very irregular, and this is a connective tissue because it connects two bones. This is the main primary characteristics of fibrous joints. So we have three different types of fibrous joints. Number one is called sutures. Number one is called sutures. Number two is called syndesmoses. Number two is called syndesmosis. Syndesmosis. And third one is called interosseous membrane. So this is number one, this is called sutures. Number two is called syndesmosis, and number third is called interosseous membranes. So this is the three basic categories. So let's discuss one by one. What is called sutures? Sutures, they are basically found in our skull. So if I consider, for example, this is our skull, and the top view I am drawing. If it is our skull, then we have sutures like this. So we have our sutures like this. So this is the top view. So it is a superior view. If I am looking from the top of that person, from the top view, this is a top view. So can you see these lines? These are called sutures. These lines, these one, this is. So these are called sutures. So this line is basically sutures because this is our frontal bones. So these two are called frontal bone. This one is called parietal. This one called occipital. This is called occipital bone. And here side by side we have two temporal bones, because as it is a top view I cannot draw the temporal bone here, but at the side, at the both side we have our temporal bone. So here it is a called metopic sutures. these sutures which connect two frontal lobe bones, this is called metopic sutures. This is called the metopic sutures. Next one, metopic sutures. So sutures are basically those joints which connect to immovable. Basically sutures are immovable joint. So these sutures, when it's connect our frontal bone and parietal bone, that sutures is called that particular sutures, we can call it as your coronal sutures. So when our frontal bone and parietal bone connect, that sutures is called the coronal sutures. So we know this is the various types of sutures because here it is another sutures is present. What is the name of that sutures? This is called the lambdoid sutures. Lambdoid sutures. So we know these are the various kind of sutures are present in our skull. So what is the name of this one? This is called the sagittal sutures. Sagittal sutures. This is called the sagittal sutures. So we have different kind of sutures in our brain. So what is basically sutures are? They are connecting two different bones and they are immovable joints, and both the bones, if I am looking exactly at the point, so for example this is one, suppose this is our frontal and this is parietal, I am drawing it. So in between there, they are almost fused together. As our age is increasing, these bones they are completely fused together, but they are living with a little prominent line so that we can distinguish the bones. So these sutures are connected by dense, it is a same as like it is a dense irregular connective tissue, but in case of sutures it is a very thin, dense irregular connective tissue. So in case of sutures, it is a thin dense, it is a thin layer because there is a very little space which is available in between both the bones. This is number 1 bone, this is 2. So in between 1 and 2 we have a very little space in where the thin dense irregular connective tissue is present, which connect our both the bones. That's why it is called the thin dense irregular connective tissue. So sutures is a fibrous. If we want to give the statement for what is a sutures, so we can say that a sutures is a fibrous connective connective tissue which is a very dense, which is very irregular, and which is a very thin layer. So these 3 points we have to mention, that it is a very thin layer, it is a dense, it is irregular, and it is a kind of connective tissue. So in case of fibrous joints, they are all dense irregular connective tissue, but in case of specifically our sutures are very much thin. So sutures are only available in our skull. So it is a skull. So our sutures are only available in case of our skull. It is not found in any other place of our skeleton. So sutures is a very good example of fibrous joints, and sutures are immovable joints, and it is connected by a thin dense irregular connective tissue. Why it is a thin layer? Because there is a very small space is available in between both the bones where sutures are basically present. That's why it is a very thin layer of dense irregular connective tissue. It is a joint because it connects two bones, two articulating bones, but it a very almost fused joints. both the bones, as the age is increasing of a particular man or woman, as age increases, their bones are almost fused together, because space is becoming more and more narrower as the age is increased. So this is a kind of example of our fibrous joint, which is classified as sutures. So next example is syndesmosis. So a syndesmosis, what is it? It is a kind of ligament or bundles of very much more dense irregular connective tissue. So syndesmosis is a kind of irregular connective tissues, or syndesmosis is a fibrous joint in which that kind of irregular dense connective tissue is present. So it is a joint where more dense irregular connective tissue is present. Or we can say both the bones are held together by that kind of more dense irregular connective tissue. So number 1, this is number 2. So both the bones, they are held together by this kind of more dense and irregular connective tissue. So this is the one of the example of fibrous joint, which is called a syndesmosis. So if we go for the detailed anatomy of where this kind of bones we can find, that one example is called your tibiofibular joints. For example, this is this is your tibia, and our fibula is present almost like this. So this is our fibula. So this tibia and fibula, as they are connected, so this connection, so to connect our tibia and fibula, there is a ligament is present which connect both the tibia and fibula. So that ligament, if I draw it little more crystal clear way, then we can find like this. So for example, this one. So these two bones are held together by a kind of ligament. That ligament is called the anterior tibiofibular ligament. So the name of this ligament is anterior tibiofibular ligament. The name of this ligament is anterior tibiofibular ligament. So I'm just going little more deep about this kind of syndesmosis. So we know this is our tibia, this is tibia, and this is fibula. So these two bones we can find in our lower limbs. So after just inferior to our knees, inferior to our femur. So here is our femur is present. So after that, inferior to our femur, this is the patella. Inferior to our femur, we have the tibia, then larger one, and the fibula is the smaller one. So at the inferior side, or at the inferior side of the joint, inferior joint, here we can find this kind of inferior tibiofibular ligament. Why is it anterior tibiofibular ligament? This is anterior because it is in front side. At the back side, there is another ligament which is called the posterior tibiofibular ligament. So in that anterior tibiofibular ligament, it is the most exact example of syndesmosis. So what happened in case of syndesmosis? So in case of syndesmosis, we can find it is a dense irregular connective tissue. We know it is a more dense than the sutures. Dense irregular connective tissue is typically arranged as a bundle. It is arranged as a bundle, and this kind of bundle is called as a ligament. So in case of sutures, there is no bundle, only a thin layers of dense irregular connective tissues are present which connect both the articulating bones. But now both the bones, in case of syndesmosis, it is connected by a kind of bundle of dense irregular connective tissue. So that bundle is called as the ligament. So bundle is called as a ligament. So this ligament is a connector which connect both the bones in case of tibia and fibula, and it is a tibio-fibular ligament. That's why it is called as a, it is present at the anterior side. That's why it is called the anterior tibio-fibular ligament. Ligament, what is a ligament? It is a bundle of dense irregular connective tissue. It is a fibrous connective tissue because all of them we are discussing the fibrous joints. So here this kind of fibrous joints where a bundle of dense irregular connective tissue connects two different bones, then it is called as a syndesmosis. It is a slightly movable joint. It permits slight movement. It permits slight movement in case of tibio-fibular ligament. So this kind of slight movement which allow the joints which allow slight movement, or joints which present a bundles of dense irregular connective tissue which is called a ligament, or which is more dense than the sutures irregular connective tissue, those are called the syndesmosis. So syndesmosis is a more dense irregular connective tissue which contains a kind of ligament which connect both the bones, or which use a ligament to connect both the bones, or which allow a slight movement of bones. That kind of joints are called syndesmosis. So it is a second type of our fibrous joint. So next one is interosseous membrane. So interosseous membrane, it's not a ligament, it is a membrane. It is a membrane of same dense irregular connective tissue. It is the same dense irregular connective tissue, but rather it is a kind of, it is not a kind of ligament, it is a membrane. It is a membrane of dense irregular connective tissue, not a bundle. So point to be remember, it's not a bundle. It's not a bundle. It's not a bundle. Rather, it is a kind of membrane. So membrane which connect two bones. For example, same example we will going to take. So for example, this is our tibia, and this is our fibula. So in between tibia and fibula, so this kind of dense irregular connective tissue is present. But rather it is present, it's not present at the anterior, it's not a kind of anterior ligament or anterior tibiofibular ligament. It's not a ligament. It is a membrane which is present along with the longevity of kind of along the bones, in between both the bones, from the superior to inferior structure, superior side to inferior side. It is present throughout the bone, in between both the bones. In case of syndesmosis, we have seen it is only present at the anterior tibiofibular point. That's why it is called the anterior tibiofibular ligament. So in rather it is present, it's not present in anterior tibiofibular ligament, it is present throughout the superior to inferior structure. It is present in between both the bones. So it connects both the bones horizontally. So this is our tibia. So this is our fibula. So tibia and fibula both are connected by this kind of interosseous membrane. So as the name suggests, interosseous means, inter means between, but two different things. So if in between number 1, number 2 both are different, if something is present in between them, that is called inter. If it is present only inside one, then it is called intra. If it is present in between two different things, this is called inter. Osseous mean bone. So something is present in between two bones, and what is called, and that is called a which is present. It is a membrane. It is a membrane. A membrane is present. That's why it is called a membrane is present in between two bones, interosseous membrane. So between bones which is present, a membrane is present. A membrane is present in between two bones. That's why it is called interosseous membrane. Inter means in between, osseous means in bones, and what is present? A membrane is present. The characteristics of membrane is it is a dense irregular connective tissue. So we have two interosseous membrane. One is present in between tibia and fibula in our lower limb, and another one is present in between radius and ulna of our forearm. In our forearm, in between radius and ulna, the same interosseous membrane is present. So this is what is interosseous membrane, and how will you distinguish between interosseous membrane and syndesmosis. In case of syndesmosis, a bundle of dense irregular connective tissue is present, and in case of interosseous membrane, a membrane of dense irregular connective tissue is present. In case of interosseous membrane, there is no bundles. Point to be remembered, there is no bundles of dense irregular connective tissue. Only membrane is present. It's not a kind of bundle. So all of them are fibrous joints. All of them have dense irregular connective tissue. But in case of sutures, we have thin layers of dense irregular connective tissue, a very thin, or which is almost invisible, and as the age is increased, the joints are almost fused, and that joints are completely immovable joints in case of sutures. But in case of interosseous and syndesmosis, we have slightly movable joints. So it is also another point that it is a slightly movable joint. It is a slightly movable joint, which is a membrane is present, or is a dense irregular connective tissue. One of the example is the one of the major example is our interosseous membrane, which is present in between both the tibia and fibula. So this is the three different types of fibrous joints. Hope you like this video. Thank you.